talk about Brock Purdy first, though, because John Lynch went on KMBR this afternoon, gave an update, and there were a few things he said. He said, first of all, like there's a whole team of people working with Brock, and they're in Arizona, and essentially they brought the team up to Santa Clara. So Brock and the people working with Brock are up here, and working under the supervision, or at least near the Niners. So that's one thing, and I guess that's good. He's not throwing yet, but he's 8 weeks out of the surgery, and in week 12, he is supposed to start what Lynch says lobbing a football, and he says it's an indicator of where he's at, what he can do in 4 weeks, and also he's not going to be like throwing it full strength. He's going to be lobbing it, and he has to build up his strength, stamina, reps, distance, all those things. Kind of what Jimmy did last year, if you remember. He was coming off a shoulder surgery, and he was cleared, but he wasn't really practicing for a long time or himself. If you ask him, I think he might say he never was himself. So what do you think of this update from John Lynch?
I think it's more in line with the idea that they're trying to let you know that they believe that Purdy has a chance for week 1. And I think that would probably be best case scenario for them and this organization with the way that they've been speaking this entire offseason. You look around at certain players, quarterbacks, right, who have had this type of surgery, and generally that's when they give you that broad timeline of this many months to this many months because they want to cover all their bases. But when you listen to them speak, they kind of always gave you the indication that they believe that he was ahead of schedule. He was going to be fine, and he was going to keep. Once it was right after the combine, I feel like, where the pendulum swung to he's going to be all right actually, because Mike Florio reported at the combine that the 49ers were still sniffing around Kirk Cousins, which I absolutely heard that there as well too. But that was
just in case.
That was based on the idea that Brock might have had Tommy John surgery. They still
that was before the procedure. Right.
So they weren't sure. When they found out and they got an optimistic timeline of his, then they just said, all right, we don't have to worry about that anymore. We're just going to roll with our guy. So again, like this feels like something that they've wanted, something that they're pushing for, and now something that kind of feels like a realistic possibility at this point when you look at how they're talking the progression. He said that he's about 8 weeks, 9 weeks. And 12 weeks is when he's going to start. So, again, this is what they want.
Let me disagree with you slightly.
Sure.
I don't know that they necessarily said, let's roll with our guy. I think they said, we don't need to do anything drastic, like go for Cousins. But we're going to get Darnold. And privately, we're going to tell everyone who wants to listen how good Sam Darnold is. So, to me, it seems like it's a little bit of a hedge. Like, bringing in Kirk Cousins isn't a hedge. That's just throwing everyone out. We want Kirk Cousins. Bringing in Darnold is a hedge, and you can play both sides. Like we like Brock. Brock's our guy, but he's just not ready yet. And have we told you about Sam Darnold? So to me, that's a little bit what's happening here. And also, I think what's happening is John Lynch's job is to project confidence. You know what I mean? It's not his job to come out and be like, God, I don't know about what Brock's going to be like when he comes. I mean, there's a possibility he might not play, and he might not be this. Like, that's what I would do. Like what he does is he goes to be like, oh, Brock's great, man. Brock's such a competitor. He's just attacking this rehab and doing all the right things. Of course, we don't really know. But I think his words are almost meaningless. His confidence is what he's supposed to project. And it's like, I fully expect to see Brock Purdy kind of doing what Jimmy did last year on a side field. Out there, you can see him, but not practicing. I feel like he's a long way away from that. And I think Lynch kind of said it in an upbeat Lynchian way.
And the other thing is to kind of, not to push back on your disagreement, it's more like what I meant by them rolling with the guy was we can give another year to Brock, see how he progresses. And Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent next year.
Right. I totally agree.
So why right now would we throw trade assets at him right now? Because if Brock Purdy unfortunately doesn't return to that level of play, or if he unfortunately regresses, or if the injury is more severe than they believe, they always have that kind of in their back pocket that they can go back after Kirk because Minnesota's quite done with him. So, I mean, it's just the 49ers.
The idea that
we're going to talk about this forever.
The idea that year 8 of the Shanahan era would bring in the beginning of the Kirk Cousins era is kind of amazing. As the founding member of the Shanastans, it was the Only Shans Club. Would that be the final straw for you, Kirk Cousins, or are you still optimistic with because you can't really write off Kyle. He's not a bad coach.
No, he's not.
He's flawed.
Like his track record right now is very good, especially when you consider that they've fumbled the quarterback position over and over. right? I think that you can either look at this one of two ways. You can say it's impressive what he's done without a quarterback, or why hasn't he figured out the quarterback position yet? So
it's impressive how much he's fumbled that position.
I mean, over and over. And think about this, and we're going to talk about Trey Lance and everything. When you think about what his development entailed, and then when that development was needed, Kyle Shanahan looked around like, wait, he needs reps? He needs development? What are we doing here with this guy? I can't.
Why didn't anyone tell me this? Like, dude, did you not read Lance Zierlein's draft profile? Right there.
So it's like he had this idea in his head of, well, Trey Lance is going to sit for a year, and when he comes out the next year, he's going to be ready to go because he's set. Yeah. No, the young man needed reps. He still needs reps, and that was going to be a part of the process. The problem is that the timeline of drafting Trey Lance and his development did not line up with what Shanahan was prepared to be patient with. And that's the weirdest part. We've heard stories about, Lance is the most, ready to play right away. No, it was probably Mac Jones. It's probably Mac Jones if you wanted that. If you wanted a guy who was ready to go right away, no development, nothing like that, Mac was there for you at 12. But when the developmental quarterback and the guy who needed reps actually needed reps, Kyle Shanahan looked around like, what the hell's going on here, man? And that's the part that doesn't I don't understand. Like, that's the part that I don't get from him.
I have a coach that been talking to off the record for a decade plus, and I like to sort of bounce my ideas off of him. I kind of think of it as like reality testing. He was in the league for a long time. I'm not going to say who he is, but if my idea is stupid, he'll tell me. And back 2 years ago, I was trying to sell him on Trey Lance because I thought that was the kind of project you want to undertake. And he was skeptical, and he was like, look, I hear everything that you're saying, but even if you're 100% right about what he could become, aren't he and Kyle Shanahan on different timelines? Like, doesn't Kyle need to kind of win? Like, he can't miss the playoffs this year. He can't take a step back. Like, I just don't see it as actually a good fit. And I think that coach was right.
Right. And usually, Grant, when a team is picking at the third spot, they're a bad football team. And they're a team that can allow bumps and bruises, whatever.
No expectations.
No, the Bears could
usually a coach in his first year.
Right. Like, the Bears could take Justin Fields, let him play. Trevor Lawrence, go ahead, knock yourself out, kid. Even Zach Wilson, go ahead, knock yourself out, kid, whatever it is. But the Niners did have to win. And there was a lot of pressure on Kyle Shanahan to immediately get back. And again, I mean, you can't really argue you can argue that they didn't finish, but they made the NFC Championship game again. But that's what Jimmy Garoppolo.
Real quick, if people forget, if they had missed the playoffs in 2021, that would have been 4 of 5 years missing the playoffs. Like, that's unacceptable. There was pressure. Yeah, absolutely.
And then now you look, and it's 3 or 4 years you're in the NFC title game, and you completely change the narrative around yourself.
Now you can play Trey Lance.
Now,
Sam Darnold. I meant Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold. Yeah, I have a problem with, unfortunately, this whole Trey Lance situation is going to be something that we're going to look back on if he does end up leaving the 49ers or whatever, and he moves on with his career. And we're still going to try to figure out where it went wrong. I don't necessarily blame the kid. I don't blame the kid. The kid needed to play.
I think it went wrong before it started. It got like when you hear the Colts say, "Hey, we understand it's a little risky with." They didn't say that, but we understand there's some questions about taking someone as green as Anthony Richardson. Well, we're not going to do what the Niners did. Essentially, we're going to play him.
You're going to play him, and remember, Shane Steichen. Help Herbert, help Jalen Hurts. I think it's a good plan. The Colts aren't ready to participate in the playoffs right now. Fine, that's beautiful. But when you look at Trey Lance, we're going to look back at this and say, man, there is a world where maybe Trey Lance isn't a good quarterback, but we're never going to know for sure whether that's the case, because I am not in the business of taking 5 games as a sample size and just saying that's it. And also, I am not in the business of just using practice and training camp as the way you can judge a quarterback. Because if that's the case, the guy before him would have been fired a bunch of times because he was not good in practice at all.
Agree. That's absolutely true. There's also a world where the Niners don't trade up and Trey Lance gets drafted by, say, the Falcons, and no one cares about football in Atlanta. And he just goes there and they care about college football. Excuse me. They care about Saturday football in Georgia.
That place is pretty electric. I thought
full of Niner fans. I don't know. I was in the press box. You were out there. That's the way I saw it. That felt like a Niner home game to me. But what I was saying is, isn't there a world where he just goes to Atlanta and plays on a bad team with Arthur Smith and now in year 3, he's good. Like, that could have happened, but he got the team traded up for him. He went to Drama Central, media darling Niners, ready to win it all, taking Jimmy's job. Jimmy's still there. I mean, it was just drama the whole time. If he had gone to Atlanta, it would have been, no one would have cared for the first 2 years.
And that's the thing is, so many people have pegged the 49ers as the best situation for a quarterback because you watch them win games with other quarterbacks.
Backups.
They're just a quarterback away. But I would argue it was probably the worst situation for Trey Lance based on the timeline, based on that locker room, based on the way that Kyle needed to win, and he had to win. That's always going to be my biggest criticism of him right now is you still have not gotten this right. And the only thing that you're holding in your back pocket is Brock kind of bailed you out a little bit, right? Like with the last pick, and Kirk Cousins is available next year. So if you want to right your wrongs, you can go on back.
We got to get to the next topic. Before we leave, the final thing I think that the Niners learned with the Lance thing is you took a guy like Anthony Richardson who is inexperienced. Everyone knows he's inexperienced. And your solution to get him to develop him was to not play him. And you said that with a straight face and did it. And we were all like, wait, but he needs experience. And then you get to year 2 and they're like, we really like him. He says he doesn't have experience. It's like, well, yeah, well, right. And I just love hearing the Indianapolis Colts being like, you know, you have to play to improve. Right. Exactly. That's exactly right.
They kind of looked at other situations in terms of, well, he just can sit for a year and the light bulb's going to turn on and he'll be fine. That's not how
Mahomes played in college. Mahomes was just learning a new system. He wasn't learning how to play.